I just was, over the moon. I mean, I was ecstatic. It's really special, and it's really special to be a part of a franchise that has so much heart and that means so much to people, and to get to play a character that has so much dimension in that universe. Um, it's yeah, it was wonderful. Wookiees are funny. Like, just being around Wookiees is funny, and the way they are. And Joonas playing Chewie, who is so good at playing Chewie, is just funny. He's just anything he does in the suit is funny, and he really knows how to use the suit to its best comic effect. Like, anytime he'll dance in it and jump and do push-ups and rap and lots of stuff. One of my favorite things about the movie is how much time you spend in the ship and really getting into the Falcon, I think, in a way that you've never seen before. You really get to know what it's like in the cockpit. You see a lot of, think you see geography inside the ship that you haven't seen before. We're flying for a good long section of the movie during the Kessel Run, and you see a lot of maneuvers and a lot of adventures with the ship that I think are a step further than you've ever seen in a Star Wars movie. He is kind of an outlaw in certain ways, and he's just a blast to work with, like really fun to work with, and we had a really good time. And I think that relationship is really special to Han, and he learns a lot from it, and ultimately learns how much he wants to be like this guy, and maybe how he wants to be different from this guy, which is, I think, true of meeting people who you admire. What makes Kira a dynamic character involves a lot of mystery, and I think Amelia's filled that mysteriousness with a lot of detail and a lot of specificity, so that it feels like you don't quite know what she's thinking, you don't quite know what's going on with her, and neither does Han, and that's what keeps the tension going. And and I think she also is just kind of, she's just very evocative on screen. She's just very compelling to watch and very funny, and has a great kind of sense of humor, and our banter in the movie is really wonderful. L3 is a kind of is really invested in droids' rights and making sure that droids are treated better in the galaxy. And L3 is very funny, and she's played by Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who's just hilarious. And Phoebe improvised a lot and did a lot of just, I mean, she's just a really wonderful comedic talent and was cracking us up all the time. Yeah, she's great.
I think people like Lando because, uh, it's always nice to meet people in life who have flair and style. Like, a lot of people don't have time for flair and style now, especially nowadays. I think it's a lot of work to put that much style into your everyday life. You have to really care about things, and I think, and it shows that you care about perception and life in a different way, and a lot of people don't. A lot of people have to really hurry up and just get to the thing, and I think he believes in, I think there's something about him that's really graceful. Alden plays him kind of still figuring things out, and that's so endearing, and it's such a great part. It's cool to see uh, this character still figuring it out and having, wide eyes about all of, like, the kind of nastiness of the world and how, rough it can be. And he plays it so well. Like, I'm truly, like, it's really cool to see him play it. And I'm really kind of taken aback every time we do a scene together, because, like, he's really just, I don't know, he's been in it very focused. And yeah, it's like, it's a cool, our actual friendship has grown with the friendship on screen, which is really great. it's reminiscent of Empire Strikes Back, where they don't trust each other, but they have a common goal. They have a common goal, and they have friends in common, and they have people they care about. And I think their relationship is kind of a relationship that exists in the world that a lot of stories don't tend to touch, which is why I think I like their relationship so much, which is like, we're we're acquaintances that care about each other, but at the end of the day, we're also in competition a little bit, which I think is something complex but also very real. I think that's a very real relationship. There's this kind of self-made droid named L3, who is a droid that's kind of fixed herself up and made herself into what she wanted to be, and is like really believes in like droid rights, and like, really droids taking control of their sentient nature, and she has like a really great navigational system, and they're friends, like they're really close. I think he just has a lot of respect for someone who's been able to live the lifestyle that he's trying to kind of make prim and proper. I think the bandit lifestyle, the almost like space pirate, space cowboy lifestyle, is not very pretty, but I think Lando wants it to be romanticized a little bit and have it be, cool and smooth, and look better than it actually is, which means you lose friends and you gain friends, and some of your friends are enemies and will turn you in as soon as they'll shake your hand. I think he admires Beckett because Beckett has survived for a long time doing that. I grew up on it, so it is kind of, it's really exciting to be on something like this, and also have the knowledge there. Like, I didn't have to do any research. I didn't have to read about it. I didn't know. Like, I'm like, yeah, oh yeah, Dagobah system. Oh yeah, this is the scene where he loses the, like, I know that knowledge is in my head already, and it's not even about me geeking out, but it's just like, it's just nice to have something that's already imprinted in your DNA, and you can just live it.
Han and Kira are incredibly close. And when we join them, when we crash into their existence, we see them for the first time kind of testing the waters at that teenage age, for whether it's more than just friends. And at a particular moment, we get ripped apart. He just is such an opportunist, and he's so bolshy in the kind of, he's like the ultimate fake it till you make it at this point in the story anyway, of like, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm just gonna do it, and then I'm gonna prove you that I could do it, not only to you but also to myself. And I feel like that is incredibly endearing. When they find each other, Han and Chewie both individually are these kind of lost souls, and the way that they meet, I think, is genius. It's inspired. It's like, when I was reading the script, I got so excited because it's perfect, and they're fighting each other, and then they kind of, that there's always this sort of rivalry between them. There's always this kind of, they never quite fully trust each other, and then hopefully by the end of our movie you'll see that it's this friendship that will last forever and ever. It's kind of incredible. The amount of work that he's put into this role has been staggering, and I think it shows. I think he brings this kind of, it sort of doesn't have a word. It's like the Han Solo, like, hey, kind of, you know what I mean? He's got that, like, he brings that swagger, he brings that kind of, that energy, and it just sort of comes to him for free, and it's really fun. It's really fun to see Alden kind of, when he's backpedaling as Han, or when he's kind of trying to figure stuff out, and then when he nails it and he does really well, and it's kind of, he's got that endearing quality about him. He's just so cool, and it makes so much sense because Lando is so cool. Or Lando thinks Lando is so cool. But Donald's comic timing is like second to none. It's kind of it's an incredible thing. And when you have someone who, because obviously Donald is like incredibly skilled and can do a lot of things. So he is. It's been really fascinating actually working with Donald Glover and Phoebe Waller-Bridge, because both are people who make their own shows and write and produce and direct themselves. So it's really, for me as an actor, it's been incredibly eye-opening because they have a view on it that you don't normally see from actors. Just been really great and kind of just interesting, and adds a kind of fresh new dynamic to this ensemble and to just to the environment that you're kind of working in. But yeah, Donald has taken a beloved character and seemingly done it with, like, he's just glided right on in with no difficulties at all. It's a real band of, like, joyful people. It's been a real treat working with everyone. But Woody, Woody is just exactly as his character. He's so funny. And so he's like, you know, he takes care of us all. He's like he just kind of, he's just very funny and great to work with. He's amazing to work with. He's very, his ability to like riff on stuff in the moment is incredible.
I think the allure to Han Solo in the Star Wars films is that he's like every one of us, skeptical. He's brutally honest, and he's but also out for his own interest. So, and Chewie being his sidekick, sort of just like being the soundboard, like the bounce board for his ruthless honesty, is a very funny mix, I think, and it's so much fun to see them working together and going on all of these adventures. In the surface, the film is about all these adventures that these Han and Chewie go on together, not yet as friends for life, but as, you know, strangers on a weird job, and then things happen and they end up, you know, having to decide whether to join together for good. And it's been a trip of discovery to find, you know, between me and Alden, you know, find those things that make up the necessary ladders that lead to those unifying moment. So it's been very interesting to try to create that. I think what's great about Emilia is she's so approachable that she can just carry all this, you know, amazing success that she's had, and then just like be her own self and just be jamming to a song, you know, in a between takes, and she just takes it so effortlessly. She's so good at what she does that it's really been a joy to watch her work. When it comes to Donald, he's so good in the music he makes, in the acting that he does, and in the ideas that he has, that it's just like been a breath of fresh air to get to work with him on the scenes, because his comic timing is so good, and all the stories that he tells are always so interesting. Everybody's always listening, and he's such a, not only a great actor, but also such a great person, that it's like really, really privileged to get to work with him as well.
It was a irresistible opportunity, you know, both as just a screenwriter who was getting the opportunity to write the Han Solo character with one of the guys that had originated it, and with Larry, you know, because he's my dad, and it was an experience that we both had always sort of been curious about having together.
Yes.
And it seemed like a fun one to do it with.
And we didn't know how it would go.
Yeah.
Probably the hardest person to work with is your son.
Yes, or your father.
Yeah, or your father.
Yeah.
But what you say is interesting, because the whole saga
Yeah.
is about fathers and sons and generations and daughters, and
Yeah.
so it fits right in, kind of thematically, working together.
Yes.
Their friendship is in some ways the deepest of anything in the saga. It's certainly deeper than Han ever had with Luke, you know, and he's in love with Leia, but that doesn't work out in the first trilogy. And but the one who's always there is Chewie. And I wanted to see, that seemed the most intriguing part. How did they get together? How did they learn to trust each other? Since the movie's very much about trust.
Larry had said to me early on that he saw that relationship as sort of a Hepburn and Tracy kind of bromance. And it always struck us as sort of obvious, if that was where it was going, that it would start with some conflict, and that it would sort of build around that, you know, and because all the great love stories have conflict. So we always thought that there would be some friction in the early part of their story.
He's a sort of mercurial, anarchic sociopath, gangster. You know, I think they talk about these, the script talks about these scrum rats, you know, of which Han and Kira are these sort of orphan street kids. And I think that's who Dryden was. And now he is, you know, he's a boss and a bit of a monster, but so much fun to play. In some regard, the film is all about the people that make Han who he is. This sort of, as this sort of burgeoning young criminal, right? And so he meets a bunch of people that he learns a bunch of really bad lessons from. But his heart is so big that he always comes back, right? I mean, that's Han. Okay, you know, he at the last minute, he just can't be the bad guy. And that's what's delicious about Han. So, and I think that Dryden sees that weakness. I was kind of intimidated to meet him, actually. He was really personable and lovely and charming, and he is helped a lot by the fact that the script it feels like Han. It's got the tone right, but he's just got that. He really understands who Han is, you know. He really has got that orphan boy who wants to be a bad lad, but just has a heart of gold, and he's really got it. You know, and he's lovely to work with, and really inventive, and incredibly well prepared.
I love L3 because she's a revolutionary, and she's a feminist, and she is fighting for the rights of her people, and she's completely fearless about that. And even though she has a revelation halfway through the film that kind of galvanizes her even more. She's a real fighter, and I think that typifies a lot of the characters. A lot of them are fighters for whatever they believe in, and I really support L3's cause. There's so much cool about Lando that you can't fake, and Donald is, however much, you know, you can try and convince yourself he's not, he is the coolest man in the world. And I think he brings that cool to Lando with such an effortlessness, but also there's so much irony in his performance that you can see his own humour come through. It's very, again, you know, it's very funny and it's heightened because of this world, but it's also really real. All the actors on this have really brought a real humanity and emotional journey to it. I think the emotional impact of this film is going to surprise people. I think because it's the origin story of somebody who is known and loved for being quite dismissive of people and being quite distant emotionally. I think this film is really about friendships and about love and about when you find somebody who's a true partner in crime or in whatever. But I think it's really about partnerships rather than flying solo.
Han is somebody who's a kind of a paradox. On the one hand, he's lived a very tough life, and he knows a lot about the streets, about taking action, taking things into his own hands, and he's learned to live by his wits and and his skills in the middle of a conflict, and yet, whether he likes it or not, there is fundamental goodness in him. He'd like to erase it. He'd like to grow out of it. As we know, he never can. He never will. So, of course, this story deals with that internal tug of war in ways that are, I think, entertaining and also emotional and exciting. Larry Kasdan and his son John, who have, I think, an innate sense of the fun, the heartache, the physicality, and even sometimes the hilarious awkwardness of Han Solo. And they really brought it to the page in a detailed way that moves the character front and center. And that's what was exciting to me. Is this is a movie about this amazing journey, this rite of passage of this important legendary character in cinema, Han Solo. Lando is first and foremost just incredibly cool, but there's that twinkle in his eye. He's funny, he's entertaining, incredibly handsome, charismatic, and you just know he's playing his cards close to the vest. That there's more to that guy than we've ever been allowed to see before. Donald Glover, who grew up loving what Billy D. Williams did with Lando, and he was honored to be able to dig a little deeper, show us a little more, let us see the younger version, let us understand, and have a little better insight into what makes him tick, what are his other abilities, and it's a terrific role, and Donald just brought it to the screen with such enthusiasm and commitment. He's a very creative guy. And yet with tremendous respect for his sense of who Lando was and what he meant to the movies and to pop culture. Phoebe, who plays L3, is such an inventive, improvisational talent, and so funny. A terrific writer on her own. And I know that the Kasdans just adored what she was able to bring to the character. And in directing her, I was always looking for the takes that took advantage of the script as written, and then went a little further and tested and pushed Phoebe to see where else she could take the character. And often it was into some very funny headspaces. Thandie is incredibly charismatic, and also has a kind of presence and strength that is not acting. Thandie is extremely intelligent, incredibly gracious, wildly talented, but nobody's pushover, and she lives by a code of ethics and principles that are very admirable. And she brought that kind of strength of character and honor to Val. One thing that I would say about Beckett, about Val, about Rio, is that we do see that there is honor among thieves. There is also dishonor. It's a paradox, but within it, these relationships are as complicated and as loaded with the possibility of real human connection and love, but also danger, betrayal, and disappointment. And so a lot of what Han is going to learn about the complexity of the world and the pain of loss and betrayal and disappointment comes from this relationship with this gang of outlaws, and his belief that they're going to be the key to his freedom. And in a way they are, and in a way they certainly can never be.
The chemistry they had was just fantastic, and I think they both have fantastic skills with improvisation. And you could see every time they were on camera together, they're literally kind of lifting each other up and sparring almost. And Donald obviously is a writer in his own right, and incredibly successful with Lanta. And to have the ability in the moment to be able to improvise and to tweak lines is something that we'd always been looking for. And I think Donald does that just fantastically. And I think, I say Donald and Alden together, it is like sparring, and you can just feel that energy rising. And he literally just blew us all away. Larry's favorite character, it's no secret, in the Star Wars universe is Han Solo. And it was the one character he said he would be tempted to come back to Star Wars and write a movie about. John Kasdan has obviously grown up with Star Wars and grown up, seeing Larry create some of these amazing iconic characters. And I think what John brings to it is a contemporary structure and I think some other contemporary characters. What Larry brings, I've never seen anyone else do to the same level, is the voice of Han Solo. Bradford's work, I think, is absolutely incredible. He truly is an artist. And for me, he's somebody who, he lights by instinct. He lights by how he feels looking at that particular scene or that particular shot. And there's just something that's really heartfelt about his work. And I'm so excited by what he's done on this film. I really think it's going to blow people away.
She's so calm. Nothing phases her. I mean, really, even when she's, in the most threatening situation. She just remains calm. She's incredibly sure of herself. I mean, it's helpful when you're an expert in explosive devices and you have a number of them all over your body. She just knows how to protect herself and her team. And she also knows how to manipulate an environment so that they can work their way, to forward to their goals. She can manipulate huge areas of rock, huge pieces of landscape with these devices that she has. So yeah, she's definitely someone you want at your side because she's an expert in moving you forward. I think Beckett has a huge influence on who Han becomes. Beckett kind of takes Han under his wing. There's obviously something in Han Solo that appeals to Beckett, and I think that it's Han's desire to forge ahead and conduct his business based on what he wants and based on his freedom. I think all of them are really looking to assert their freedom and to carve out a future for themselves that isn't about oppression, that isn't about towing the line in any kind of conservative sense. They're all outsiders, all of them. And I think that Beckett finds that appealing in Han. And also Han's like a puppy biting at your heels. He just will not take no for an answer. And that's irresistible. Woody is just a breath of fresh air. Every moment, the way he delivers a line, the way he moves, the way he interprets the character, he just brings the unexpected to everything that he does. I think sometimes he surprises even himself. He's very free, very instinctive, and it's lovely working with someone like that because every moment is an opportunity to really bring every ounce of your best self, your best energy to the work that you do, because he does that. And he's also the best fun and kind, and he is the first person to laugh at himself, which, for a massive movie star like him is it's quite humbling.
It's a phenomenal script. It really is just a phenomenal script. And from the first time I read it to the second time I read it to the third time it just progressively got better and better. So, I was talking about Ron being a master, but these guys are true masters of their craft too. And I just think it's just such a cool story, and there's a lot of humor and there's a lot of excitement. And they know this universe better than anybody. That word mentor has been used in describing my character, but I don't know. I think it's kind of similar to me and my kids. I'm a great example of what not to do. On the other hand, if you're going to be a criminal, I'm a good example of some of the codes you got to live by. So I think some of those rub off on Han. Phoebe is amazing. The humor she's brought to this part and this character is going to be memorable. She kind of, I should be a little more annoyed with her because she comes into every scene and essentially steals it. And just comes up with all kinds of great stuff that stays in the film because it's just so good. She's a really richly funny lady. I think my favorite moments are just when, we've had scenes where all of us were involved. And it really is, you got like Donald, Phoebe, Emilia, Alden, and all of us kind of cutting up together has been just, I mean, really big laughs. So I always think that, you know, when people watch movies, I always think, God, I wish they could see some of the stuff that isn't represented on film, things that happen in between takes, you know, funny moments. And there have been quite a lot of them. So I love hanging with these guys and playing with these guys. I can't really call it work. And I think that's been my favorite part about it. And Ron also has contributed quite a lot on that score, you know, because he's not a heavy-handed director. He's one who can get in there and mix it up and have fun and tell stories. And so I think that's the thing I'll miss the most is just hanging with this gang, you know, laughing.